We're going to be talking about blood vessels, and blood vessels include arteries, veins, and capillaries. You can title it blood vessels, you can title it artery, veins, and capillaries, any of the above. We're first going to talk about arteries. Arteries take blood away from the heart. Easy way to remember this is that the word artery and the word away both start with the letter A. So they're typically oxygen rich. So typically after they go to the heart, they go to the lungs, back to the heart, and they usually have picked up oxygen from the lungs. There's one exception to this, and we will learn about that, but the pulmonary artery is the one exception that's not oxygen rich blood, and that's because it's taking it to the lungs where it's going to pick up that oxygen. But typically arteries are usually oxygen rich. Arteries also have muscular walls, and this is basically so that they're able to kind of force the blood to where it needs to go. If you think about it, the muscle here is the heart, and it's pumping this blood with a lot of force. So we don't want a thin little blood vessel here because that pressure could cause it to break. And so the arteries have to be very thick to withstand that high amount of pressure being pushed through them by the blood and by the heart. So thick muscular walls. And these can also become clogged with cholesterol, which we'll talk about, but can have negative impacts on the body system. So arteries are the ones that are typically clogged with cholesterol and cause problems. Next up, we have veins. Veins take blood back to the heart or towards the heart. Remember, arteries and away. Veins take blood back to the heart. You see an animation of a vein here. You'll notice it's got these little valves. And these valves prevent the blood from flowing backwards. So veins are usually low in oxygen. They don't usually have a lot of oxygen because they're returning blood back to the heart after it's been through a lot of the body. It's dropped the oxygen off at the cells on the way, and so it's returning to the heart. And at this point, there's not as much pressure in there. Think about turning on a spigot for a hose. If you turn it on, that faucet, really high, it's going to come out really fast. But if you put it in a hose, and that hose is really long, the pressure at the end, that water doesn't come out as fast because as it works its way through the hose, it loses some of that momentum and some of that pressure. So these have one-way valves to prevent blood from flowing backwards. And this is important because it's not moving as fast as it was when it first left the heart. It's slowed down a little bit, and we need to make sure that it doesn't flow backwards. And these are really close to the surface of the skin, which is, we usually see a lot of our veins. They appear blue basically because the light that's coming through our skin causes them to look blue. The blood, it's not actually blue. It just appears that way because of the way the light is reflecting off of the skin. So veins and arteries are connected by capillaries. Think of a tree. See how it kind of looks like a sideways tree? The arteries and the veins are the trunk of the tree. And all the little tiny little branches up at the tippy top, those are the capillaries. Everywhere in our body, we have all these capillaries. That's why if you cut yourself anywhere on your body, it's going to bleed because there are little tiny blood vessels everywhere. And those little tiny blood vessels are called capillaries. So capillaries kind of connect arteries and veins. You can see an image here. They look like a tree, right? They have these spidery protrusions. They're super thin. Anywhere you have a cell in your body, there has to be a blood supply really close to it. which is why they have all these spidery projections to reach those blood cells, right? They've got to be able to reach almost all the cells in your body so they can drop off oxygen and pick up carbon dioxide and transport hormones and all of those. So the reason that capillaries are so thin is to make it really easy for oxygen, CO2, water to pass in and out of the bloodstream to and from the cells. So this is where our nutrients and our oxygen and our CO2 and our hormones, this is where everything gets transferred. What's going into our body cells? Well, nutrients, oxygen, maybe hormones, okay? These types of things are going from the bloodstream into the cells. And then what happens is the cells do the reverse. They get rid of their waste. So any waste, whether that's carbon dioxide, whether that's extra salt or sugar, gets transferred into the bloodstream. And so at the capillaries, what happens is they drop off stuff to the cells, they pick up whatever the cell doesn't need, and then they journey back here, right, into the tree trunk, which is now going to be called a vein. And the vein is different from the artery. So if this is the artery dropping it off, the vein maybe is over here. Arteries and veins are different. So the capillaries are really, really important. So to recap here, I want you to tell me, which of these do you think is a vein? So it's okay if you got this wrong, but a vein is going to be skinny, not going to have the muscular walls. It's going to be big as well. So this letter B is our vein. It doesn't have the muscular walls, okay, but it's still generally pretty big. Remember, tree trunk, right? Next up, I want you to tell me which one's the capillary. Remember, these are the little guys that connect the arteries and veins? Yeah, so letter C is our capillary. It's only one cell thick. It's really tiny. And then which is our artery? This would be letter A. And we see those really thick walls to withstand that pressure.